Hello there, and welcome to the first edition of the Island Life online magazine, where I'm going to be talking to you all about the wonders of the dark skies of the Isle of Man. Now, when we look up at the sky at night time, people often think, wow, look at all those stars, how come there's so many, what are they, what can we see? How on earth can you make sense of it? Well, that's what I'm here to show you, or to tell you about. First thing I want to say to you is this is the wrong time of the year really to be doing naked eye astronomy, and I concentrate on naked eye astronomy because that's what you do literally by going outside and just looking up at the night sky, and hopefully I can tell you what sort of things you can look for. But this time of the year, of course, we don't get very much in the way of dark skies because it's too light. The sun doesn't go down till 8-9 o'clock and rises again about 4 o'clock in the morning, which is why we have the TT, of course, at the end of June, but we won't talk about the TT for this year. So basically, there's still things we can see, and there's still an awful lot I can talk about what we can see in the May night sky. The sky does change on a seasonal basis, and that's something that maybe people don't understand or realise, because basically as the Earth turns on its axis over 24 hours, it also rotates and moves on its orbit around the Sun. And this means the stars change on a seasonal basis. And I can illustrate that very clearly by using a group of stars called the Plough. The Plough is an asterism. It's an asterism, which is the name given to some stars within one or maybe more constellations. And the 7 bright stars of the Plough are actually part of the constellation of Ursa Major. So if we look first at my first graphic, which we'll show you here. So here we've got the night sky, but this is a little bit different to what you would actually see with the naked eye, because what I'm showing here is the seasonal variation of the stars of the Plough. As the Earth goes around the Sun, we have this phenomena of where the stars change. We start to see, if you look, you should never look at the Sun incidentally, but if you could see the stars that are directly behind the Sun, they vary. They vary throughout the year, and the Sun actually passes through your zodiacal sign, your sign of your zodiac, on a monthly basis. There are different signs for different times of the year. And this has the effect of also making the stars move if we look into the northern horizon. And what this graphic is showing you is on the northern horizon. Just look down here, we've got the words the Plough in autumn. And this is how the Plough looks. When it starts to go dark early on in September, October, the sun goes down earlier, so therefore we get to see the stars of the Plough. And the Plough sits very, very well on the northern horizon. However, at this time of the year, where's it gone? It's disappeared completely. Well, it hasn't. It's overhead. It's directly overhead. Almost, if you look straight up, it's there. I'm showing this on a flat screen, of course, but the reality is it's much bigger and much more dramatic in the night sky. Go out there and see it for yourself. And what's happening is this Plough is rotating around this central star here, the star Polaris. The star Polaris is the North Pole star. It is the star that is directly over the North Pole of the Earth if you were at the North Pole. Similarly, if you went to the equator, the pole star would sit on your horizon. And from that, it's not much of a leap for navigational purposes to realise that the height of the pole star above your horizon is the latitude of the place you're viewing from. So from the Isle of Man, it's 54 degrees. We can measure that ourselves outside. The fist extended is 10 degrees, so one fist on top of the other gives you 5.5 fists. The pole star is 54 degrees above our horizon. Next time you're on the Ben McCree, have a look at it. Find the pole star, find the Plough, depending what time of the year you're looking. Remember my graphic here, autumn, winter, spring and summer. Depending where the Plough is, you can always find it. Just look overhead if you can't find it. Find the pole star by using these 2 stars at the bottom. They point straight to the Polaris, and measure the height of Polaris using your fist. If it's 5.5 fists high, you're on your way to Haitian. You're okay. If, however, it's moving dramatically up and down, then it's windy. And even worse, if it starts to drop or go even higher, then maybe someone's hijacked the boat. But that's the Plough. That's the Plough. Wonderful asterism, great signpost for us in the skies. But what I want to do now is move on to my next graphic, which is the southern sky from the Isle of Man, which we can also use the Plough for to help identify some of the features. So this now is the southern sky as seen from the Isle of Man about 10 o'clock at night in May time, maybe early June. And it's Different, of course, to what we saw in the north, because, of course, we're looking at a totally different direction. And just like the sun and the planets, they all transit the sky from east to west, and so do the constellations. And the constellations slowly process across the sky, and each season we get to see more and more of the different constellations. The winter constellations are the most dramatic because we have a profusion of very bright stars in those, and we'll talk about those later in the year. But in spring, we've got 3 very bright, prominent stars visible from our Manx shores. We've got the star Regulus in the constellation of Leo, we've got the star Spica in the constellation of Virgo, and we've got the star Arcturus in the constellation of Boötes, the herdsman. Now go back to the plough, remember it's sitting directly overhead, find the curve of the handle of the plough, which is very distinctive, very easy to see, follow that curve down in an arc, you will arc to the star Arcturus. You then follow that line on, you speed on to the star Spica. And that is probably the first way I ever learned how to identify these 2 major stars in our skies, Arcturus and Spica. And over to the right of these, we've got the bright star Leo. Now, Leo is one of the few constellations that looks a little bit like what it's meant to represent. It's got an inverted question mark, an asterism, with the Regulus at the bottom of it, and you've got the body of the lion stretched out to the left. That's Leo the lion. My birth sign, incidentally, I'm born in August. When the sun passes through Leo, it's the month of August. Well, it would be, except it's a month out, but we don't tell the astrologers that. Leo sits pretty well on a line called the ecliptic. This line you can just see on the graphic here. This line is the ecliptic. So called because that's where eclipses happen. The ecliptic is the line where the moon and the sun and the planets all go along, and we get lunar and solar eclipses. Next month we'll be talking about an eclipse visible from the Isle of Man on the 10th of June. That makes you watch. So here we go. We follow this line down. We've got the constellation of Leo, the zodiacal constellation of Leo, and down here we've got the zodiacal constellation of Virgo, the Virgin, each with their own principal star very close to the ecliptic. But to finish looking at our stars for this month, before we move on to looking where the planets are, I just want to go back to the constellation of Boötes and the star Arcturus. Because in 1933, in the United States, they had an exhibition. They had this wonderful exhibition, and this exhibition was to celebrate, it was the century of innovation, they called it. It really was celebrating all things technical and innovative. And this was because they'd had a previous event in 1892 to commemorate the 400th year since Columbus landed in America. 33 years later, oh, it's actually 34, but we won't argue with the pedantics of it. 33 years later, they wanted to have this major innovation, this major exhibition in Chicago. And somebody came up with the bright idea of using the star Arcturus, because Arcturus is 33 light years away. So therefore, 33 years after the original exhibition, they moved on to... Actually, I'm wrong. It was 40 years. I'll come back to that in a moment. It was 40 years. From 1893 to 1933 was 40 years. We thought Arcturus was 40 light years away. We actually know it's 33 light years away, but that's progress for you. And they actually used the light of the star Arcturus to light up the lights of the exhibition on the shores of the lake there up in Chicago. Fascinating stuff you can find out when you go into it. But I want to finish with just to tell you a little bit about what's visible, what else is visible in the night sky in May. We have, of course, got very few decent planets on view at the moment. Mars is dropping very fast to the western horizon, hardly visible, but rising in the skies above Peel, we've got the magnificent planet Venus, quite unmistakable. It's still only visible in a light sky at the moment, but believe me, over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, it's going to get brighter and brighter and brighter, and everyone's going to be saying, what's that very bright star over Peel? Is it the space station? Is it Mars? Is it Jupiter? Is it the Star of Bethlehem? And that's another tale we'll talk about later. But that will be very, very easy to spot from mid-May onwards. And we've also got, and I don't like this particular one, but I have to tell you about it, at the end of May we have another supermoon. And the term supermoon is something that astronomers don't like because it's referring to the fact that the moon is ever so slightly bigger. You'd think from the media that it was massive, much bigger. It's not. You would never notice the difference. And again, I want to give you an experiment. If you look at the moon on May the 26th, it is a supermoon. But whenever the moon is in the sky, get your little fingernail at arm's length, like we did before, get your little fingernail at arm's length, and your little fingernail will completely cover the disk of the moon. Whether it's a supermoon or the opposite one, which I call the wimpy moon, it doesn't matter. The moon is only half a degree wide. There are 360 degrees around the whole horizon. The moon is half a degree wide. So is the sun, which is why we get eclipses. And we'll talk about eclipses next month. Thank you very much and enjoy your viewing.